So last weekend I did some camping at Grille Recreation Area in Spicewood, Texas. And after getting my tent set up and getting some cozy accommodations for myself, uh, I just relaxed and had a little coffee and then enjoyed the sunset. The sunset was really nice. And once the sun went down, of course, you want to have a decent campfire. And I was able to get one going with some fire starters and some old wood. And then after a good night's sleep, I cooked myself a good breakfast the next morning, had plenty of coffee to get myself geared up. And then after a check on the weather, I was ready to take my hike. So just to give you some reference points, because I'm going to show you during this hike how bad the drought is going on here in Texas. The yellow dot at the bottom is where I parked my car before I started my hike. So from that point, I cross where it looks like there's water, and there's no water now, over to where that side is with the greenery. And there's like a ridge there that I hiked along. And I'll show you some pictures from up on that ridge, how high the water level was and how much it's dropped. And as I walked along that ridge, you see a blue dot a little bit to the upper center, and that marks a spot. You can see it in the water. There's a little tiny boat dock there. And there's absolutely no water in that area except a little rivulet of water that continues to run upward towards the purple dot. And that's what remains of Krause Springs that was feeding this whole water area. But the entire lake has dropped dramatically. So I'm going to show you that. Now, so the yellow dot's going to be a reference point because that's where my car is parked, and you'll see my car in the pictures. And then you'll see the boat dock in some of the videos and pictures. And then you'll see where I was fishing. So it'll give you an idea of the depth of the water as I worked my way out. So let's take this journey, and you can hike along with me. So you can see my car in the center of the screen right now. I'll zoom in on it in a minute, but this whole area with all this brush was underwater at one point in time. So it gives you an idea of how bone dry everything is. So I'm going to zoom in on my car, and you'll see I came across right there through the brush, and now I'm up on the ridge, and I'm going to be heading in the other direction, towards the right. So along the ridge as I hiked, there was this rock, a small rock on top of a big rock, and with mussel shells all around it. So the water level was up to this point at some time. But if you look at it now, I mean, there's at least 40 feet or more of water that's gone from the entire valley. There's just these shallow ponds. They're very shallow. So here's a few more photos as I walked along the ridge, looking from left to right as kind of a progression of photos. So you can see the little shallow ponds, and then eventually this is the direction that I'm hiking towards. I'm showing you the map because now we're in the place where we can see the boat dock, which is represented by that blue dot and that little mark. And you'll see I'm like standing in the middle of this lake, and there's no water whatsoever. Just a small rivulet, which you'll see also. So at one time, this whole valley was filled with water. Where I'm standing right now, I'd be underwater when this was full. In fact, that little roof there, that's a boat dock, and there's absolutely no water. It's bone dry. So I'm going to keep hiking until I get to the river. And I know there's a spot like right over the hill there where there's some water. So I'm going to head there first. So here's a little interesting evidence here. This little tree here, this little bush sticking up from the dry ground. You zoom in here, you see shells. So this was underwater at one point. And if you look, step back here, there's my fishing poles. I'll just make a sweep. So this was all underwater at one time. And you can kind of see on the hill where all those rocks are. That's like a demarcation line. And you can see along the hill there's a dark section and a lighter section. So the dark section up to the top of it was where the water was. But look at this, and this goes all the way back to Krause Springs, and it's pretty much bone dry except for a tiny little rivulet over this hill, and I'll get over there and video that for you. Okay, so you can see my tracks leading back to that bush we looked at right there. And then as we turn, again, the whole valley is dry entirely, even 360, all bone dry, except you see some greenery over here. So I'm going to head over in this direction towards this greenery, and I'm going to show you. You can almost see it. There's like a little rivulet in the middle of it. So check this out. Look at these clods of dirt, and you can tell they're all cracked because it's all dried out. Oh, this, again, it was underwater for a long time. It's the lowest it's been here since, well, the park ranger said since 1938. Look at these dry things sticking out of this cracked up dirt. So all that's left of Krause Springs flowing out into the lake, Lake Travis, is this little tiny rivulet here. That's it. And the water level in the lake has gotten so low that it hasn't even been able to back up into here. So I'm going to follow this rivulet down to where there's water. So I found what looks like an old water heater. I'm not sure if it's a water heater or not. And then over here, it's like an old sink. Yeah, that's like cast iron. It's heavy as anything. Okay, so as I walk across this dry, thirsty land, thirsty ground, there's the first significant sign of water. And there's actually a white egret over here. He was in the water, but when he saw me, he flew onto the bank. Let's see if I can zoom in on him. You'll see him take off probably as I get closer. But yeah, this is it, man. This is the start of the water, and this whole valley was filled in. I mean, you can see the steep banks. Those were all completely underwater, way up. Probably as high as where those white rocks and the dirt meet. Way, way up. There he goes. Alright, well, he knows something if he's fishing around here, so I'm going to fish over here. Look at this. It's like walking on another planet. So here's looking back in the direction of that boathouse, and there's some raccoon tracks. And then looking in the direction towards where I'm going to reach the point hiking. It's just around this corner here. I'm going to show you it again on the map to give you some perspective. Okay, so again, the blue dot is where that boathouse was, and now we're reaching that point, the purple dot, and you can see how little water there is compared to what used to be. And there's my fishing poles set up at the point. So I'm kind of out on a peninsula here. See, I got one fishing rod set up there, and the river goes down, and it keeps going, and then there's this kind of river that flows in this way, and then goes around the bank there. But all of this at one time was completely underwater, because I took a map GPS of where I am, and I'll show you it. It's unbelievable. It shows me in the middle of the water. So the blue dot on here marks the spot where I'm standing at that point to do my fishing on dry ground. So most of the water below that blue dot is just gone. Got a little fighter here. He was feisty. Big catfish. Big catfish. All right, I'm working them in. Woo! No, maybe it's not a catfish. I don't know what that is. That might be another. I don't know. I've got to get them in. There are some big catfish in this river. All right, you cat dog, go back in and get even bigger.